So the Parliament was built in the late 19th century on a 9-year period between 1877 and 1886. So that gives it 125 years old. And the architect who designed the plans was Mr. Eugène Etienne Taché, and he had a theme of construction that was Je me souviens. Je me souviens means I remember, and that became Quebec's motto after. And the signification of it is I remember my past, my history, and my origins. So everywhere in the building, you'll see symbols that represent this history, which is ours, through the main periods, which are the French regime, the British regime, and the Canadian Confederation. But also you will see symbols that represent all the European nations who contributed to Quebec's development. And that's what you can see in this hall especially. If you look on your right over there, you first have 3 golden fleurs de lis, 3 lilies on the blue background. That represents the French monarchy, so France before the Revolution. Just beside, closer to me, is the Heart of Ireland. On the other side, you first have the Lion of Scotland. And the last one is the 3 golden leopards of England. And beside each of them, you'll see maple leaves for Canada. And if you look all around near the ceiling, you'll see the floral emblems of the UK. So you have in the middle of each arch a rose that represents England. Beside it, you can see the shamrock of Ireland or the thistle of Scotland. But this is the thistle of Scotland. And now if you look at the bottom of the walls, you'll see carved in the wooden panels names. They are key figures of the French regime, so people who contributed to the development of the New France colony back in the 16th, 17th, and 18th century. So for example, I have on my right Louis XIV. He was the King of France and of course of New France in the 17th and 18th century. So all sorts of different historical characters like this. Do you have any questions so far? It's good? So just behind me is the grand staircase. That was dedicated to the 2 governor-general who successively held office during the construction of the building. And we're going to take it to see the rest of the tour. But for those of you who asked to take the elevator, you just have to follow my colleague, which is right over there. And she will lead you to the elevator and we'll meet. Okay, so the rest of you can follow me. Yeah. No problem. Okay, so before we go further, I want to talk to you about this part. This part is the restaurant, the Parlementaire. That was built in 1917, and they built it in the inner courtyard of the Parliament's building. And something interesting, it's open to the public, so you are allowed to go eat there if you want to. We serve breakfast and lunch on weekdays. So if you're still in Quebec tomorrow, that's a good place to be.
Tomorrow is my holiday.
Sorry? It's gonna be open? Is there something?
No, it's only because it's a holiday in Ontario.
Oh, no, like in Ontario, but not in Quebec.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, in Quebec it was June 24th. So you can walk in the hall. So you can walk in the hall. So we are right now in the second floor hall. Just like the main hall was dedicated to key figures of the French regime, this one is dedicated to key figures of the British regime. So as their name you can see carved in the wooden panels. So for example, on my left is George III. He was the King of Great Britain and Ireland between 1760 and 1820. And it was under George III that Lower Canada held their first election in 1792. So it was the debut of democracy in the actual territory of Quebec. So for those of you who are not Canadians, Canada was divided into in 1791, and both of them, well, that was Upper and Lower Canada, and both of them had a parliament building. So both of them had democracy. On both sides you can see 2 doors. They lead to the main chambers of the parliament building. So this way is the National Assembly chamber, and the other way the Legislative Council chamber. but we're going to see both of them from the upper floor. And if you look behind me, you'll see a stained glass window installed in 1919, built in Quebec. And it's a representation of the departure of Samuel de Champlain, leaving Honfleur City, a city in France, to found Quebec City in 1608. So the one you can see on my right, dressed in blue, it's a representation of Champlain. And the other one waving at him in front, it's a representation of Pierre Dugas de Mont. He's the one who provided financial aid for Champlain's voyage in 1608, and he was also a French explorer of the 17th century. Any questions? Yeah. They're going to be upstairs. Because the elevators goes on both sides and you're going to meet them upstairs. So, you can follow me. So you can follow me in the National Assembly chamber. You can have a seat on that side. You can have a seat on that side.
You want to do
It's okay.
You can have a seat on that side.
How come I'm too high?
Because you're sitting on the top of the seat, I think.
Oh, really? Put it down.
Yes. Too anxious, yeah? Oh.
No, it's there for me. All on the same side. Just easier for me. So we are right now in the National Assembly chamber. This is where meet the 125 members of each district of the province of Quebec. So every district is about 40 to 45,000 people, and each of them will elect a representative that will come here for the gesture of the province. So the parliamentary system we have in Quebec, just like everywhere else in Canada, is based on the British tradition. So that explains the disposition of the chamber. In the middle, the chair you can see in the back, is for the Speaker of the House. The Speaker is a member like everyone else, so he was elected first in his district. But after there's an election through all the members, and he's the one who represents the National Assembly. So he was elected to do that. And he's also kind of like a referee to all the debates. So he makes sure every right and privilege of everyone is respected through the debates. On his right, we'll sit the ruling party. It's the party with the most number of elected members. Right now, it's the Liberal Party. They have 65 members, and they are going to form the government through all the ministers. And if you take the first complete row, you count 6 chairs from the back, you'll find the place for the head of the party, which becomes automatically the premier of the province. It's Mr. Jean Charest right now. On the speaker's left, we have the official opposition group. As the second party with the most number of elected members. Right now, Parti Québécois, they have 46 members. And still, if you take the first complete row, you count 6 chairs from the back. You'll find the place for the head of the party, which is right now Mrs. Pauline Marois. You can have her on the other side if you want to, or stand up because there's not a lot of spaces here. Yeah, there's a step over there. So we also have a second opposition group. It's the Action Démocratique du Québec. They have 4 members and their head is Mr. Gérard Deltel. And we have right now 10 independent members, and one of them represents the party named Québec Solidaire. It's Mr. Amir Kadir, for a total of 125. And if you go on this level, on both sides, you can see the places for the guests. So on that side is the ruling party's guest, and on that side, the opposition group's guest, facing them. Just behind me is the press gallery, and where you are right now on both sides, it's for the public. Because every debates are open to the public, you can attend to them without any problems. And if you cannot, everything here is broadcast on the parliamentary channel. And now if you look at the decoration of the chamber, you will still see these symbols that represents Quebec's history through the main periods. You can see, for example, in the right corner above the door, you have the 3 golden fleurs de lys that represents the French monarchy, so it stands for the French regime. On its opposite side, you have the 3 golden leopards of England, so for the British regime. And if you look on the floor above each doors, you'll find the letter C. It stands for Canadian Confederation. But also you can read above the niches the letters V and R. It stands for Victoria Regina, which means Queen Victoria in Latin. She was the queen during the construction of the building. And now if you take your attention to the painting in the back, this one was done by an artist named Charles Huot, an artist from Quebec City. In fact, he had done 3 paintings for the Parliament's building. This is his first one, finished in 1913. It's the language debate, and represents the first assembly that was held in Lower Canada in 1793. The title, the language debate, comes from what was discussed at that time, because they wanted to know in those days in which language they would be allowed to speak. We are in 1793, that means the British regime, so English is the official language, but on 48 members, 33 were French. So they wanted to be allowed to speak in French. The debate lasted 3 days, and at the end they finally decided to use both of them. So it was bilingual. But something interesting, French is the official language of the province of Quebec since 1974, but the same rule of 1793 still apply here during the debates. So the debates could be in French or in English. But about 100% of the time it's in French, but if they want to speak in English, they're allowed to. And there's no translation. And the second painting Mr. Huot had done, it's on the ceiling. It's Je me souviens, so I remember. Finished in 1920, that's a representation of all Quebec's key figures through history. So in the back, well, now because of the light we can barely see, but you're gonna have some time to walk on both sides. It's the arrival of Jacques Cartier with the first natives, and it goes up to the Father of Confederation, closer to us. In the middle, there's a woman. She represents the province of Quebec with the coat of arms at her feet. And in each corners, you have allegories for the 4 seasons. You have any questions?
So you said the debate can be in English as well, so, and you said there are translators or no?
There are no translators. But in fact, I think last time somebody spoke in English in that chamber, that was in the 80s.
No.
Seriously, you barely never see that. Because when you are in Quebec, you have to speak French if you want to be elected, because all the laws, everything is in French. So it's kind of helpful to learn French. But you don't need to be Anglophone. You don't need to learn English. About every member knows English pretty well, but they don't have to. So that's why the base will be all in French, and a huge majority of them are French-speaking person. They were born like this. That's their first language. So to my opinion, the reason why they haven't abolished this law, that's because they didn't have any problem with it, simply. But I never saw a debate in English here, myself. Other questions?
The meeting was a violent meeting? Is that
Yeah, that's what the artist wanted to show, that there was a strong one with the chair, the back and all the papers. And you see the one in the middle, that's Le Binière. He's the one with the arm raised, doing a speech about how beautiful the French language is and how useful, and that a huge majority of Lower Canada is French, so that's ridiculous to speak English while about 80-85% of the population don't. So that's what they're doing. So if you don't have any more questions, you can walk on both sides, take a few pictures. If you have any questions, I'll be right over there. And in a few minutes, we'll leave to see the other chamber.